First question I have for you, why do you think online video has caught on so quickly?
Well, because I think some of the all technologies that are caught on quite quickly allow people to be disorganised. I think you just have to see the success of mobile phones and how that enables people to, to be much more fluid with their social engagements and meeting people and things like that. And that's kind of really one of the killer apps of that. And I think online video again allows people to watch video and watch TV when they want to watch, and not kind of as dictated necessarily by by broadcast schedules.
Now, broadcast, you just mentioned that, it brings with it a whole host of expectations. We've been trained in a certain way of consuming video, yet the internet is not set up for broadcast. So how do site managers address some of those expectations, or at least manage them?
I mean, two of the main problems that that you're going to have using the internet for video is around bandwidth and latency. Problems that we usually have to deal with in more traditional kind of web media. But with video, you're talking about a much more sustained stream of data. You have to you have to make sure that stream is constantly happening, and has to adapt really to any congestion or other kind of things that are in the way. And one of the other problems I think that site managers have to worry about is, you can work as hard as you can to make your infrastructure scale and support video, but you're really kind of beholden to problems outside and further downstream from you. I find it quite frustrating at times when I'm reading Twitter to see what's happening and how people are viewing the site, and people are complaining that the video's buffering and it's not working. But it's totally out of our control because it's problems downstream. And I think it's just trying to adapt to those and try and use techniques to adapt for that.
Do you think that we'll get to a point where it's indistinguishable between broadcast and internet-based?
I'd like to think so. I mean, I think we have to. As I say, there's definitely the ISPs are trying to do things. Video is becoming a much more kind of. I think by the end of this year, it's going to be even bigger than peer-to-peer in terms of the amount of traffic. But it's not necessarily the amount of activity. So ISPs are obviously trying to do things to help their networks cope with the influx of video. There's some things around last mile peering and caching and things like that. So actually putting caches in the exchanges and for ADSL. There's many of the ISPs are trying to upgrade bandwidth as well. Lots of experiments in putting fibre into the home, and I think we'll solve the bandwidth problem. Hopefully, it then becomes more just a problem of actually getting the streaming the video out there. The powerful servers and things like that, and also of latency.
So, what are the most common downloading or delivery mechanisms? It's streaming, downloading, P2P,
streaming and download, P2P, yeah. So downloading is what we typically expect, from internet experience. You download the video, you watch it. Users typically want to view the video quickly, though. So they don't necessarily like to wait because they want a TV-like experience. And this is where a progressive download comes in. So this is where typically what you see on YouTube, where you've got your flash player, and as it's downloading, you're able to watch it. There's peer-to-peer is kind of, I would put in a similar kind of bracket as download. That's where effectively, rather than using your own bandwidth to deliver the video, you're using your users, so they can effectively share the content amongst them. And there've been kind of quite a few services which have experimented with this or used it as a primary delivery mechanism. But it doesn't always typically work very well if you actually have kind of a mid-range of content. So if you're just distributing one or two things, you'll find that content is well seeded amongst your users, and the sharing happens quite easily. But if you're kind of you don't have a huge amount of content, content doesn't always get very well seeded, and actually you just end up serving the content yourself to people who are in a normal download fashion. And they're very good for not necessarily immediate content as well, where you want to view the content straight away. Streaming is actually where the client pulls the data as it needs it. So it's much better gives you much better control over your resources, because if somebody pauses a video that's downloading and goes off to make a cup of tea, that video still downloads. But if you pause that in stream, the stream stops, nothing more happens. So it allows you to manage those kind of resources better, because users typically do a lot of those kind of things. The video's in their control, so they can do that. So streaming's much better if you have much longer video and much more high quality as well.
So of those options, which one do you think is most promising? Which one is the one that scales the best?
Well, streaming does obviously scale the best. It allows you to do adapt the stream based on network congestion, how the user's device that they're using is performing, and things like that. So it has lots of little tricks that you can build on top of to deliver that experience and kind of get around that buffering problem. But I mean, download's still a great way of say if it's short form content, if it's an easy way of getting into video distribution.
So the last question I have for you, what does a company need to consider before investing in a CDN?
So again, how are the CDNs set up in relation to download and streaming? So many CDNs will just offer you HTTP downloads and won't necessarily have the maybe if you want to use Flash, the Flash media servers, to actually make the best use of that bandwidth. And cost is an important thing as well, and latency. Does the CDN have peering agreements with the locations that you're streaming to? Because again, that's typically a problem. The lower latency you can get, the better.
Great. Well, thank you very much for coming. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Excellent.